for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Wednesday, May 22nd. It is the Sick Podcast. Contrary to last night when we were live, because there was no game in the National Hockey League playoffs last night, it was an off night for this rare occasion during these 2024 playoffs. Tonight, this was actually pre-recorded before the game got started between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. So as you're watching this right now, just past 10 p.m., the game is not over yet. But once again, so that Grant McCagg of Recruits and Recruits.ca and the Recruits Draftcast podcast can actually watch the game, we have pre-recorded this just a little bit earlier. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. As I put on my glasses and I read the script, once again, recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the fourth consecutive year. Mind you, I know the script by now. This prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team, and for their unwavering commitment, of course, and contribution. Energy Transportation Group is a top fleet employer. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt Tibi, right behind me. Take a look at that fridge. You're going to find La Bittt Tibi, as well as some other beverages as well, all made by the Geloso and all distributed by the Geloso Beverage Group, of course. So La Bittt Tibi, brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards, offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bittt Tibi, embrace your true nature. Previously brewed in Abitibi, but now, of course, brewed in Laval over at the Geloso Beverage Group. A shout-out to Playground, which I will talk to you about in just a little while from now, and a shout-out to Accent Insurance Solutions. But without further ado, let's bring him in. Once again, he is Grant McCagg of Recruits.ca, the website, and of course, the Recruits Draftcast podcast, former scout for the Montreal Canadiens during the Bob Gainey administration. There's the cap, proudly showing off his Recruits cap and his Recruits top. Look at that. Look, big budget, this guy. I'm telling you, he's got a big budget on apparel. Look at it.
We're getting some new gear tomorrow, Tony.
Oh, that's amazing. Happy to hear it. Listen, a very popular podcast, the Recruits Draftcast podcast, especially the one a couple of days ago. I think it was 4 days ago. Seneca or Lindstrom with pick number 5. And that, I believe, the last time I checked, was over 11,000 views on YouTube alone. So congratulations. You, my friend, are you're starting to take off. Good for you. I had no
Thanks,
doubt.
Tony.
I had no doubt. All right, okay. Look, there's never going to be a shortage of things to talk about with you, especially when the Montreal Canadiens are concerned. And we haven't got to it yet, but about 20 days ago, give or take, you put out an article of kind of like a buy low, sell high article. And I know when you talk trades and trying to improve your team, I know a lot of people are looking for big names, and sometimes they're looking for players that, you know what, the Montreal Canadiens would have to give up the farm to get. But the best deals are the ones where you catch an asset that still has something to give, that is probably at an all-time low in their career right now, but a change of scenery can do them a lot of good. And that's the exact thought process that you had in mind when you wrote that piece on recruits.ca. And the player that you came up with is
Patrik Laine.
Wow. It's a name that a year and a half ago would have excited some people, and a year and a half later probably scares some people off. We know that he's had his troubles, of course. You're never happy to see a player enter the player assistance program. Those are obviously major red flags. But once again, when there's a major red flag like that, of course, your value is going to take a hit. And sometimes a change of scenery can get back on track. Tell me why, like, we understand the whole concept of the buy low, sell high. But why you think Patrik Laine is the first name that comes to your mind?
Predominantly because I think you could probably get him at a decent price right now. And I mean, the organization has been stressing that they'd like to find size in the top 6 and goal scoring.
Yeah.
And I mean, he doesn't always use his size, mind you, but he is 6'5". He's 26 years old, so he's in the prime. Pardon me?
Tough to move.
He is, and very skilled. Obviously, he's got a great shot. I picture, who do you cover? You get Caulfield out there on the power play and Slav and this guy, which guy do you cover? Or which two do you cover? There's one of them's open, and they all have great one-timers. I also actually picture a line of Doc, Slavkovsky, and Laine that you could throw out there. I just picture, three top 3 picks, 3 guys, all 6'3" plus. Just down low on the cycle, those guys get rolling. They could be awfully tough with their skill, with their hockey sense.
Yeah.
All that combined into a line, come playoff time especially, man, I could see. And I mean, a lot of things would have to go right. Like,
of course,
the Canadians would have to do their homework on Laine.
And what exactly has troubled him, and whether or not he's been able to.
Right. I'm sure they have, and they know all that stuff, and they, whether he's even on board, I would imagine Columbus would be, keen on a deal if the right one comes along. And Montreal, I think, is a team that's in a position right now, asset-wise, to maybe make it appealing to them. With all the defense depth they have an extra first-round pick. Now, if you can pick up a guy that, if he does bounce back, 99% of the time he's going to be better than a kid that you picked 25th overall in the draft, because you're looking at a 35-goal scorer for his career, Tony. Now, the last one, like even Pacioretty didn't even average 30 goals a year in his career with the Canadians over 82 games.
No, he led the Canadians in scoring very often, would go seasons of 30 goals, 33, 35, I think 37, 39. But you're right. Over the course of his career, he was just under 30 on average.
Yeah. Well, the last forward, I think, would be Richer, that averaged more than 35 goals for his career in Montreal.
I could think of one after Richer, but it's a little bit of a trick answer that I would give you.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
So I'm going to trick you. You ready?
Somebody that played like 3 games or something like that?
Somebody who played 104 games over 3 seasons.
Oh, okay.
Pierre Turgeon. Yeah, okay. Pierre Turgeon scored 50 goals in 104 games over 3 seasons.
Yeah, okay. Well,
yeah,
then,
so it's a trick answer, because 104 games obviously is not a big sample size, but I'm just trying to trick you and have fun with you, by the way.
No, well, that's the right answer then, but it's still, you have to go back to the last century, right? So
I'm not so sure it's the right answer, by the way, because didn't Radulov play less games than that and actually score more? Like you got to have a certain amount of games that you can play before you actually qualify, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Radulov was more of a playmaker, I think, than a goal scorer, was he not? No. You gonna look it up?
I am going to look it up right now, because I'm convinced that no, Radulov scored his goals, but not with the Canadians. No, he had actually, you're absolutely right. He had 18 goals, so forget about it. It's not Radulov.
Okay.
So you know what? It might be Pierre Turgeon, but once again, 104 games is not a very big sample size. Stéphane Richer, by the way, was one of my favorite scoring.
Yeah,
I always
I like to bring him up whenever I can because he's one of your favorite zones. So if they can pick up a goal scorer that's in that realm, and I don't know what the cost would be, but I got to think that if you offered the Winnipeg pick and one of those young defensemen that there's just not going to be room for, like be it, as much as I love Struble and Harris, one of those two would probably be prime candidates that could win a spot and quite possibly a top 4 spot in Columbus down the road. And they get another pick because they're obviously rebuilding at this point. They're a few years away, I do believe.
And let's not forget, Trevor Timmins is in Columbus.
That's right.
And anytime you talk about young players who haven't played a tremendous amount of games in the National Hockey League, I would imagine that he would be counseled and say, what do you think? Considering that some of these players you just talked about were Trevor Timmins picks. So he knows these players like the back of his hand.
I know that he likes Struble and Harris, so I'm sure he'd be consulted in such a deal. And, and that's the other thing, too, is John Davidson running the show, presumably so.
Yeah.
They don't have a GM right now. So does JD pull a trigger on a big trade, or does he wait till they get a GM in place? So there's a lot of questions concerning this, and it's a definite shot in the dark. I don't even know if Laine will be available at the draft, but I'd be making that phone call and at least,
especially to a team that doesn't have
I think Laine's the perfect fit for what the Canadians need right now. If he gets his game back,
especially, like you just said, a team that doesn't have a GM right now, they could be somewhat vulnerable, and who knows? Maybe the president does pull the trigger on a trade. You said something before that a lot of people watching right now are probably going to be going, "Oh, what did he just say?" Hold on a second here. Hold on a second. Before you jump to social media and you're up in arms about Grant saying that, you know what, he could see if a deal like this would ever materialize, he could see Doc playing with Slafkowski and Laine one day. Listen to the reasoning that he gave, because some of you are probably going to say, what is this guy talking about? How could you break up Suzuki with Caulfield and Slafkowski? Well, logic usually is that the players that go as early as possible in the draft, if they play different positions, one plays left, one plays right, and one plays center, logic is that you usually end up putting them together. So what Grant is saying is, as much as there's a line that's working really well, there's two ways a management team and or a coaching staff can look at it. One way would be, hey, we got two guys of 6'4" and one guy of 6'5". Man, they're going to win every single battle along the boards. They're going to protect every single puck. They're going to be tough to move, and they'll be dominant, especially in the offensive zone. And the other school of thought is Laine drafted 2nd overall, Slafkowski drafted 1st overall, and, of course, Doc drafted 3rd overall. They were drafted a lot earlier than Suzuki, who was drafted 13th overall, and Caulfield, who was drafted 15th overall. That's the logic, and Grant said it.
Well, I always have scouts logic in there a bit, Tony.
Yeah.
The upside of these three is highest, right? Because of where they were picked. And Laine, Caulfield and Suzuki are good players, but they're not 35 goal scorers for their careers. And, it could be a long time. They may never be. So Laine put in the right situation, like both Doc and Slafkowski are really good playmakers too. And I could see them feeding him the puck and getting it to him lots. And he's got one of the best, as you know, Tony, one of the best one-timers in hockey, like right up there. So, and again, it wouldn't necessarily mean Slafkowski goes with them, but Doc, Doc Roy and Laine, tell me that wouldn't be a dandelion too.
That would be awesome. Why don't we bring up Patrik Laine's hockey DB if we can? All right, put back on the glasses. Here we go. Drafted 2nd overall in the 2016 NHL draft by the Winnipeg Jets. He had seasons of 36 goals, 44 goals, 30 goals, and 28 goals in 68 games with Winnipeg, 2 goals in 1 game, and then traded to Columbus. If memory serves me well, for Pierre-Luc Dubois, was he not?
Yes, he was.
And then with Columbus, 10 goals in 45 games, 26 goals in 56 games, 22 goals in 55 games, 6 goals in 18 games, 204 goals in 480 games. I mean, I know that Laine struggled with consistency, and I know that, probably some coaches would like to see him play more of an intense game and more of a 200-foot game. But if we're strictly talking offense and goals, like you said, those are unreal numbers.
Even the last 2 years, Tony.
Yeah.
If you over 82 games, it's roughly the same pace as Caulfield. It's 31 goals for over 82 games, which is roughly what Caulfield has averaged for his career. So
yeah,
like even when he so-called struggled, he still produced as well as any, player on the Canadiens. So, and he's 26 years old. Like maybe he comes back from this rejuvenated and better than ever. I also think, he played in Columbus and Winnipeg. And when he was at his absolute peak for me was in his draft year, and why I had him ranked, first overall, actually, because he was just so fantastic. In the World Juniors with a good team, they won it all. I mean, it was a big upset, but him and Puljujarvi were the best players in the tournament.
Yeah.
Then in the Liga playoffs, his team went all the way. He was playoff MVP. Then he goes to the World Championships, wins the MVP there, leads it in goal scoring.
Yeah.
And Finland was great. Anytime that he's played on teams that were very good and he was in the limelight and the spotlight was on him, he excelled. Then he goes to Winnipeg. And I mean, I love Winnipeg, but it's not a big market. It's not the limelight. And then he goes to Columbus, same deal. I just wonder if he's the type of guy that would be inspired by playing in, hockey's mecca, right? Montreal, with the greatest history. Like, would he not be inspired? And I think if he comes back from this and he's, healthy mentally and physically, he goes to a team like Montreal with its rich history that's on the uprise.
Yeah.
Got great young talent to play with. He'd get to play with the best players that he's ever played with, I think. Because he wasn't always on the Scheifele line. They ended up keeping him. They put him with Stastny and Ehlers usually.
Yeah.
So he didn't even play with the best guys in Winnipeg. And then Columbus didn't really have much. So put him with, Doc and Slavkovsky or whatever, rejuvenated line. He could be, I think he's still got the talent to score 40 goals with his eyes closed if he's motivated and healthy. So,
and Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time of his draft, the 2016 draft, like we talked about, there were a fair share of scouts that at one point had him at number 1. Did they not? Or I know Matthews went number 1, and I'm not saying that there were, obviously the consensus was Matthews.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I think most had Matthews number 1, but I
wonder
Matthews
who they would have at number 1 if Matthews played wing. Think about that one.
No, that's right. That had something to do with it. It was because he was the center, and I place a lot of just like Snake there, and we discussed that the last time I was on with Snake, but I place a lot of emphasis on playoffs. Now, if you're picking at the top of the draft, you try to pick guys that are going to help you in the important games. And I watched Matthews in the Swiss playoffs that year. I think he led the Swiss league in goals. And then
Lugano, I think. Yeah.
And in the playoffs, they got swept. They were first place team, got swept. He didn't score a goal, didn't look that great. And it occurred to me at the time, and I was a little leery about just how good Matthews was going to be in the big games. Would he help you win at playoff time, like Laine would? And we still don't know about Laine because he hasn't got many playoff appearances. But
you're right.
We do know that Matthews certainly hasn't. He hasn't done it yet with Toronto.
Yeah. There's things that happen in the playoffs, right, Grant? One of which is you have less time. Another one is you have less space. Another one is you have less power plays, and another one is the pressure environment obviously is a lot more enhanced, and another one is that coaches will be playing the matchup game a lot more tightly and a lot more consistently than they probably would in a regular season game. So I just named 5 things that happen come playoff time. There's probably a lot more than that, which differentiates the playoffs from the regular season. But Matthews has not been able to adjust to those parameters that we just talked about in the playoffs. He hasn't. Like, his numbers are not terrible in the playoffs. They're actually pretty good, but
not as good as regular season.
Not as good as regular season. And by the way, I don't think they're as good as Marner's either. I think I was taking a look at one point. I think Marner's actually produced a little bit more than Matthews. But anyway, look, Matthews is a great player. We're not going to take away from that. But, you know, let's show the draft year, actually. The draft year where Austin Matthews went number 1. Patrik Laine went number 2. Pierre-Luc Dubois went 3 to Columbus. Puljujarvi went 4 to Edmonton. Juolevi went 5 to Vancouver. Man, that pick is unbelievable. 6 was Matthew Tkachuk to Calgary. Clayton Keller to Arizona 7, Alexander Nylander to Buffalo 8, Mikhail Sergachev, there's a nice one, to Montreal at 9, Tyson Jones to Colorado at 10, Logan Brown to Ottawa at 11, Michael McLeod to New Jersey at 12, Jake Bean, Carolina at 13. Here's a beauty. Charlie McAvoy, Boston 14, Luke Kunin, Minnesota, Jacob Chickern, Arizona, Dante Fabro, Nashville, Logan Stanley, Winnipeg, Kiefer Bellows, the New York Islanders, Dennis Cholowski with Detroit, Julien Gauthier with Carolina. By the way, Julien Gauthier had great hands too, like just great hands. And you know, when you say, is it able to materialize at the National Hockey League level? Very unfortunately for him, it did not. By the way, we're going to go all the way down what a pick. Tage Thompson, St. Louis, 26th pick overall, who in the end ended up getting traded to Buffalo, of course, in the deal that brought Ryan O'Reilly to St. Louis. I don't think St. Louis is going to complain. Ryan O'Reilly won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah. You look at the picks 18 to 25, and, you know, just Tage Thompson's the only really good pick, right, from 18 on.
Yeah.
But just goes to show you that, you know, 25th pick is hit and miss. A lot of those guys were missed in that draft. It wasn't a really, really deep draft class, and I don't think this one is either. So I think the 25th pick is quite expendable, because if you think you're getting a top 6 forward with a 26th pick in this draft, like Montreal already has Doc, Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki, right?
Yeah.
They add a top 5 pick that's a forward. There's 5. You've got Roy, Kapanen.
Yeah, but how much, Grant, how much value does a 26 pick overall have? I mean, I know it's still a first-round pick, but, you know.
Well, so it's not great, you know. I mean, it's a first-round pick, so it's better than a second-round value, obviously.
Yeah.
You know? But it's hit or miss in the 20s. That's why so many teams make trades at the trade deadline. You know, the good teams that pick, they're going to be, you know, that are going to be giving away a draft pick somewhere 20 to 32. There are a lot. They give them up because there's at least a 70% chance that it's not going to be a really good player that gets drafted there. So you're not going to get a top 6 forward at 26, not when you already have the pieces there, you know, 4 of the pieces. So I think that Hughes and Gorton are. You look at that young defense. You look at the young core. They're all just coming up to their peak years. They're going to go for it. They're going to go for it and try to get a forward that can help them.
There's no doubt. We know they want to accelerate the rebuild. They know that, you know, history has shown us here in the last couple of years. Last summer, they went out and they made a deal. They gave up 2 draft picks to get Alex Newhook. The year before that, they traded Romanov to the New York Islanders and ended up trading away a couple of draft picks to end up getting Kirby Dach. And what does Laine have in common with what the Canadians are trying to do, right? Yes. Kirby Dach acquired. Alex Newhook acquired. Michael Matheson acquired. Yeah. What do those players have in common? They're all first-round picks.
Yeah, that's right.
And by the way, I think I saw this somewhere earlier today. I think in the top 10 or 15 or something in the National Hockey League playoffs, 85% of the picks are first-round picks. And so obviously those are the guys that carry the most value. But when the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, and I've never had this conversation with, I've never got this really, but when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, McKinnon was drafted first. Landeskog was drafted second. Rantanen was drafted 10th. Byron was drafted 4th. Makar was drafted 4th.
They got Nikushkin, who was 11th or something like that.
Nikushkin was 10 or 11th, right?
Yeah.
Eric Johnson was a former first pick overall, not drafted by Colorado, but came from another team. Nazem Kadri was like a 7th pick overall by Toronto, I think.
Yep.
Clearly part of their strategy, they had Alex Newhook on that team.
I was going to say Newhook as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of their strategy, you'd have to think was
pedigree.
Pedigree. Having players that, were first round picks. And I think the Canadians kind of like that strategy and kind of have adopted it as well. I think that's what they're trying to do. They're figuring, we just talked about, for the most part, the highest success rate comes from former first round draft picks. So they're probably thinking, you know what, if we can identify the good ones or the right ones, or maybe just try and get as many as possible, in the end, we should have a hockey team that's going to win more hockey games than not. And I think that's what they're trying to do. So it makes sense. But you know what I was thinking about? You talked about buy low. Clearly, Laine's value after entering the Players Assistance Program and already being with 2 National Hockey League teams this early on in his career is at the lowest it's ever been. Point well taken. How about if the price is still high and you're looking for a big guy who's got soft hands, who could score goals, who's obviously got a lot of holes in his game because or else he wouldn't be that available. I say 6'5" forward, who's a winger, who can shoot the puck and has the ability to score goals, not at Laine's rate, but did in junior hockey and early on in his career. I'm thinking about somebody.
Not Mantha.
Anthony Mantha.
No.
I know that Anthony Mantha is a 3-on-3 player, with all due respect to him, and he plays even at that. He doesn't come back past the halfway line. I get it, but what I'm saying is if the price is too much for Laine, if you're the GM, would Mantha be a consolation prize? I think you just gave me the answer.
I'm not a big Mantha guy.
You're not the president of the fan club, eh?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. He doesn't play as big as he should, or as consistently as he should, or as 200 foot as he should.
No.
If he would have had all that, mind you, he would never be in any trade talks whatsoever. Let's be honest.
Tony, you were reminding me when you were talking about Colorado, like ask Serge Savard what he would think of this picking up pedigree, like remember back, even before he came, obviously they traded Langway for Green and Walter, who were first and second overall picks.
That is correct.
Those teams in the 80s, they picked up like Bellows, who was the first overall or second overall pick. They picked up Bobby Smith, who was the first overall pick.
Yeah.
They picked up, they got players that were picked.
The Bobby Smith deal was the missing piece to the puzzle in the with the 86 Cup team. He got himself the big centerman, and also, let's not dismiss Ryan Walter and Rick Green played huge roles.
They did. They
played huge roles in
you
that
can
Cup
say what you want, but
yeah.
they've got one more cup than Rod Langway did, as great as he ended up being.
Yeah. I think he won a Norris. I think he won a Norris in Washington. Did he not after the trade? Yeah.
He beat out Coffey, who had like a ridiculous amount of points. Tells you that how the voting has changed. There's no way today that a Rod Langway would get the vote over a Paul Coffey who had 150 points or 130 points or whatever he had.
Paul Coffey is the greatest offensive defenseman I've seen in my lifetime. And before you send me a note telling me about Bobby Orr, I was born in 1972, folks. Okay, so very unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to see Bobby Orr do his thing. Right, I wasn't watching live when he was playing in the Canada Cup 1976. Okay, on one leg. I've heard the stories. All right, I wasn't watching, unfortunately. So I know that based on everything we've heard, Bobby Orr is that guy. But in my lifetime, it was Paul Coffey, who took some flack for his defensive game, but ended up making arguably one of the greatest defensive plays in the history of
Canada
hockey
Cup.
at the 1984 Canada Cup when he split up a USSR 2-on-1 in overtime and then goes back down the other end of the ice, takes a wrist shot, which a lot of people thought was actually his goal, only for the replay to show that it was the late, great Mike Bossy who deflected it in and got the game-winning goal. I love Bossy. When he used to score, he used to go like this. Like, you know, like jump up and down on his skates. Yeah, he was amazing.
Well, I mean, those TVs, Tony, you know,
may rest in peace.
If we'd have been watching it, you know, in the 70-inch screen TV we got now, we'd have known that Bossy tipped that. But
yeah,
those TVs then, Tony, you know, it was pretty fuzzy screen.
hey, listen, I know we're so before we move on to one more topic, realistically, let's just say Laine has turned the corner, but let's just say that Columbus would be willing to move Laine and go in another direction, and obviously Laine would probably embrace a change of scenery. Let's just say if everything, you know, all the dots end up connecting. You that knows all the prospects that are out there, and you know what Columbus has and what they don't, what could be the fairest trade? And this is going to be tough. It's always tough when you're asking someone what a fair trade is because you know, when you're asking it at Montreal, everyone wants the Montreal Canadiens to end up with Nate McKinnon, and they want the Canadiens to end up trading the 7th round pick and a 7th defenseman. It doesn't work that way, folks. Realistically, what would be something that Columbus would want that you think would be fair enough value, and it would be a good trade for both teams when all is said and done?
Okay, so not Columbus prospects, but Montreal prospects?
Okay, I'm Columbus. Columbus. Let's just say I'm trading Patrik Laine.
Yeah.
I'm asking for one of their stud defensemen. Now, based on the conversation we've had, you don't think that, you know, obviously I don't think that you're going there, but
like Gooley or
Reinbacher or
right.
Mayu.
Well,
look, Trevor Timmins drafted Mayu. I would imagine he's a big fan.
Yeah, well, that'd be one that you maybe, if it wasn't Struble, if Struble or Harris wasn't enticing enough along with the 1st round pick, you know, the next logical step would be Mayu. I'd consider that. I really would, because there's just
well,
you know,
because the Canadiens
again,
as much as everyone likes Mayu, the kid. There's only so many defensemen that are going to play here, but there's only so many guys in the National Hockey League that could score 35 goals on average plus.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that'd be the other guy you'd consider, but I'd certainly, you know, it would be the other trade, and again with the 25th pick. But I guess you'd also maybe consider Beck, Kapanen, one of the two, as you know, if they want a center to go with it. And
you'd rather not Joshua Roy, because Joshua Roy could end up being one of those guys that could end up being a third piece on a second line. I know you would still probably do it, but you'd rather not, right?
Well, of course, you know, but
yeah,
I mean, Columbus is maybe they want a little more than that, but if it gets, you know, when they start talking, well, we want Gooley or whatever, you just say, okay, thank you. The price is still too high. Let's move on, you know. But maybe 2 prospects in the 1st, maybe, but not the top guys. I think they'd be looking for a little too much for considering the question marks that there are with Laine right now.
The Canadiens would have to move salaries, though, elsewhere if they can't move it in that deal, because Laine comes with a price tag of $8.7 million on the cap next season and the season after that before going UFA. It's also a risk to take to go out and acquire a player. If you're going to give up a guy that you got to have in your organization at entry-level value for the next 3 years, probably be with your organization for the next 10 for a guy who's going to be UFA 3 years from now, and you're going to have him for you could end up losing him. Now, mind you, if you know you're going to lose him, you might end up trading him in a year and a half. But it's a risky proposition, let me tell you. But sometimes, you know what? He who doesn't risk doesn't get anything.
There is a bit of risk there, but you look at Stanley Cup winners and almost down the line, they ended up making big trades, that was for that missing piece or whatever that got them over the hump and made them contenders. And I think Montreal is in the position where, hey, we've got these assets. Let's gamble them for a gamble. But if it pays off, wow. Like, imagine inserting a 6'5", 40-goal scorer into the Canadiens lineup over the next 3 years. How those guys are developing with the young defense. Yeah. If the goaltending, if the goaltending holds up, that could be a contender in the East.
Want to thank Playground for their partnership and sponsorship of the Sick Podcast. Step into the excitement of Playground with the Mystery High Hand promotion. Every day starting at 10 a.m., you have a chance to win a share of over $120,000 in cash prizes available until May 31st. Whether you play from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily or join the late night action from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. from Sunday to Thursday, you could win up to $25,000. For more details, visit playground.ca. Don't miss out. Swing by Playground and get in on the winning. Also, a shout out to Accent Insurance Solutions. All insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. It's funny. Every time I see Accent's phone number, I immediately think of my buddy Sergio Momesso, because their number to call is 363-3636 in the 514 area code. And, of course, Sergio War, number 36. Call the Accent team and get the right solution at the right price. Accent Insurance Solutions. The website is at Accent Assurance. www.accentassurance.com. All right, okay. Look, there's still a lot of time before the draft, obviously, which is going to take place on Friday, June 28th and Saturday, June 29th at the Sphere in Vegas. But there's, everybody's got this draft fever, of course. The Canadiens have the 5th pick. I think there was a great article. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, by the way. Jean-Nicolas Blanchette in the Journal de Montréal. If you didn't, I'm going to send it to you, who went back and did the research going back to 1990. And statistically, the 5th pick overall has played more games in the National Hockey League than the 4th.
Than the 3rd?
Than the 4th. Then the 3rd, I'm not sure, but then the 4th for sure. Mind you, I have a feeling that Jaromir Jagr had something to do with that, right? Because he had a career where he played very long, and he produced a lot of points, and, of course, was the 5th pick overall when the Pittsburgh Penguins ended up drafting him. So, look, we're not going to get into detail because I want to do it in the next show or 2 or 3 with you, but you seem to come at us with a couple of names every now and then, and you're ahead of everyone else in terms of you've been talking about Beckett Seneca, I think, for probably about a month before everyone else did, and said, hey, maybe you should take a look at this guy because this guy's flying under the radar. And even though he's not in not too many people's top 10 lists, you think that he'll end up being there for sure. And you think there's a chance at 5 when the Canadiens draft. Today, is there a player that is garnering some momentum here down the stretch?
Yeah, there's a kid playing in Norway that was at the World Championships. Stian Solberg. He's a 6'2" defenseman, very mobile, excellent defensively. He stepped in. He played in the Norwegian Men's League all year, and this is his draft-eligible year. I watched him. He played in the World Juniors, was very solid for a team that was losing 10-1, 9-1, but very solid. Watched him in the playoffs, and he was really good. But what he did at the World Championship is just it may be unprecedented. Like he led the Norway team in minutes, 23 minutes a game almost. Mm-hmm. Now, I was looking back and trying to think, Owen Power, he had that 125-minute game in his draft year, and everyone lauded, wow, that's great. But he didn't play up until then. He didn't average, 23 minutes a game. The only one that come close in recent times that was in his draft year was Slavkovsky, actually, who in his draft year averaged a little over 20 minutes a game, but at least 2 minutes less a game than this Solberg kid. And he was dynamite throughout the tournament. I've talked to a couple scouts, and I've been telling them, like, geez, watch this kid. And they did. They watched some of the world championships, and they, they're with me that this kid is a riser. And it's funny, last year, Tom Wallander, he going into the under 18s, on a lot of lists, he wasn't even in the top 30.
Yeah.
By draft day, he had a really good under 18 and just kept climbing, and you kept seeing it. And talking to the NHL guys, draft day, Vancouver takes him 11th overall. Well, I think it's a similar story with this Solberg kid, but he impressed at the World Championships, not under 18s. Against, there's some really good teams and players playing in that.
Yeah.
He was hitting 6'5" guys, knocking down 6'3", 6'4", big guy. Like, he's not afraid. He's very physical. He led the Norwegian League in penalty minutes this past year in the playoffs. Like, very rugged, not afraid, confidence. He jumps into the play, scored 2 goals, has a really good point shot, very mobile. I just think that he's rising like crazy, and you might see him in the top 15 mix before on draft day. Just like
I would imagine it doesn't help when you play in the Norwegian League, right? Because you were saying that probably not the strongest league in the world, right? I know you gave examples of him doing it versus other teams.
Yep.
But it probably doesn't help that there's not a tremendous amount of players out of Norway that have had solid NHL careers, right? I mean, there's probably not even 10 players out of Norway to ever play in the National Hockey League, and the best one is.
You'd be surprised, but
the best one is probably Matt Zuccarello.
In the last decade, players drafted out of Norway, percentage-wise, quite a few of them made the NHL. So when they are picked, they end up being pretty good players. So,
mind you, there was one player who once upon a time, a lot of people said, I don't know if he should go very high. He comes from Slovenia. He ended up having a pretty good career in the National Hockey League. Of course, we're talking about Anze Kopitar, who went 11th overall in 2005, the year that Montreal Canadiens drafted Carey Price 5th overall. That, of course, was the year of Sidney Crosby, who won number 1. And number 2 was Bobby Ryan.
Yeah. Jack Johnson, no.
3rd, yeah. And Benoit Pouliot, 4th. Carey Price, 5th. And Gilbert Brulé, 6th. No?
Remember the draft show with Columbus and Donnie Boyd? So excited. They picked the goalie.
Yeah.
So they could get Gilbert Brulé.
Yeah.
He thought that was just, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. There was a great example.
What a draft by the Los Angeles Kings, who picked up Anze Kopitar and later on picked up the goalie. I mean,
Quick.
That was Jonathan Quick. I mean,
not bad.
They went on to win a couple of Stanley Cups with those guys. I mean, absolutely amazing. Hey, I win a Stanley Cup with you every time you're on because you are a Stanley Cup for the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. I want to thank you very much. And I want to let everyone know to follow Recruits and recruits.ca. You can get Grant's, of course, access to his fantastic website with everything you need, from mock drafts to articles to interviews to scouting reports. The list goes on and on. And you can get it for less than $4 a month, less than $50 a year if you want to go yearly. It's absolutely fantastic. And of course, you can subscribe to his Recruits Draft podcast with Shane Gaumont, and that's absolutely for free. And it's candy for those of you who want to get all the inside stuff on all these prospects, of course. Amazing stuff. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. For Agnello and Sammy. Yeah, tell me.
I'm working on the draft guide right now, Tony.
Oh, really?
Hard at it. Aiming for right after the combine, so I can get all the official weights and heights and get the feedback on what NHL scouts got from the combine, from the workouts and everything. But then right after the combine, we will have the draft guide available, and I'll make sure to hopefully you can plug it next time you have me on.
I definitely will. And when you find out the weight of those players, please let us know. And I'm be willing to bet that none of them will ever weigh as much as I do right now. We'll talk to you soon, my man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, we have a giveaway that we want to talk to you about. Look at it. I mean, there it is. It's bubble wrapped. It's wrapped up here. It's absolutely amazing. It's Samuel Montembeault's first ever game in Montreal. There's only 5 of them in the world, and all you got to do is follow the Sick Podcast on, of course, formerly known as Twitter. So it's application X now. And follow Era Frames and follow Unrivaled Memorabilia, which is where we pick this beautiful piece up at. You can do that on Instagram, of course, and you can comment sick and you can share the post to your story. So this actually is on Instagram. So follow the Sick Podcast, follow Era Frames, and follow the Unrivaled Memorabilia. Once again, comment sick, share the post to your story. Let all your friends know, and we'll be giving this beautiful piece away in the next week, and it's going to one lucky winner. All the best of luck to you. Once again, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Tibi. Special thanks to Playground. Special thanks to Accent Insurance Solutions. And special thanks to Era Frames and Unrivaled Memorabilia. Also, special thanks to all of you for watching. If you like it, share it with your friends. Comment sick, SICK. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Agnello and Sammy at Master Control, I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. I'm Marinaro. Me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.